Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell and I'm joined by Amy Rivera and Teena Love. And we talk about each week the things that matter to us women and our perspective on the views of the world. Hello, ladies.
Hello, hello.
Welcome home. We like to talk about the headlines impacting women. So tell me, what are you watching, Amy?
I haven't been watching a lot. I've been reading a lot, just because I've been kind of recovering. But I've just been reading a lot of self-motivating books and things like that. Some good positive headspace stuff right now.
Excellent, excellent. And Miss Teena Love, are you watching anything
Oh, girl. Well,
on a media device?
so here it is. So here's what I've watched, and I'll tell you what I'm also watching. I've watched Denzel Washington's new movie, The Little Things. Yes, so that was really, really good.
Does it
I
get a
enjoyed
thumbs up or a thumbs down or in the middle?
He gets a thumbs up. I've heard people say, they were underwhelmed or whatever, but I liked it. I liked it. But anything with Denzel, he could just be sitting there for an hour just saying nothing, and I would still be walking away saying, "Girl, did you see this thing?"
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, but what I'm watching is The Bachelor. Watching The Bachelor.
You've been hooked.
I used to watch it. I stopped watching it for a while because I wanted an African American male on The Bachelor, and finally they have one now, and so I started watching again. So
Noise. Excellent. Well, I am watching film. I'm trying to stop getting hooked on series and being stuck in a binge watching purgatory for entire swaths of my life. But what I watched was American Skin recently.
Wow.
And I'm glad to watch something that moves me in so many ways. Partly because of so much truth and realism, but because I hope for things that I saw in there. I was hurt by things I saw in there. I was fired up and convicted about things. And so that to me is a great overall use of my time.
Okay.
So bravo to Brother Parker and the folks that put the movie together. I'm really great.
So now you said, what's the name of it again?
It's called
What's the name?
American Skin. I highly recommend you take it, but it's going to take some strength.
And
American
where
Skin.
are you watching
And can we
it?
watch it?
Yeah.
You can get it on, you can order it, I think, on Prime.
Okay.
So it's a rental.
Okay.
And
yeah, I'll watch it.
Okay.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
So,
Just seeing you describe it makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, well, you guys know I'm really passionate about things. When I laugh and I'm joyful, I'm there. When I'm moved and sad, and it's all there. I mean, it was all of that. And maybe it's because we're in a vulnerable place, but it's where it is. And so with this, kind of relating to our topic, I now actually want to go back and see it. And once you guys see it, maybe we can talk about it too.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, so just getting on to our topic for the week. By now, we've all seen the video of a 9-year-old girl being pepper sprayed in New York that raises so many issues. Ladies, let's talk. Amy, Teena, have y'all seen it?
I have. I've seen it. I've seen a few different versions of these.
Yeah. I'm really going to tap into your wisdom this time, and Amy, your positivity. Let's start with some basic questions. Who should be responding to these calls? As we're talking about reform, as we're talking about the inappropriate response, or a much different approach that may be needed with calls for domestic issues, mental health issues, or anything other than violent or dangerous offenses.
Yeah.
Who should be responding to these calls, in your opinion, Teena?
Yeah, here's what I've been thinking about that. And, I think we kind of discussed this on another episode of the thought of perhaps a team of people who, when it's youth perhaps with behavioral issues or, mental sort of issues, that there's a team of individuals that are called along with the police officers to help address the situation. Social workers or somebody, in that capacity. Um, and I also think females are good to be called on this kind of situation. In fact, I could swear that during the footage, she asked for a female cop. I thought I heard her saying she wanted a female. And when the female stepped on the scene, she piped down, she calmed down. So that's what I'm thinking, is that we need more females to address these kinds of situations. We need a team of individuals who are sensitive to youth who might be, having some issues either mentally or behaviorally or those kinds of things.
And we are talking about youth.
Mhm.
So you all are around youth about as much as I am daily. And there's all kinds of uh odd, strange, different, unfamiliar things that come about in their lives. And so for any given moment, I'm not always sure about my best response.
Okay.
Let alone, yeah, I mean, like, does this one, should I, okay, mom, calm down. What are we really dealing with here, sweetheart? Tell me what happened,
Mhm.
and said, what's wrong with you? What are you,
Yeah.
there's a necessity, I believe, that we all become trained in
Yes.
in much better response to other people in crises, period. But when I think about women being incorporated and included, then I start thinking of the vicious cycle. So while this young lady needed more women in that space, look at the environment that women face in this space to even enter and be an effective and helpful resource along with the other things that we provide. It seems like such an awful dilemma, Amy.
It is a dilemma. I agree with Tina. First off, those two officers, I don't think should have responded at all, given the situation, because there's history with that police department in New York with the same situation. Um, it is a cycle, and when I'm watching this, I just broke down because my son is not white, and this is a child my son's age. And
Mhm.
if that happened to my son, and my son has behavioral issues in school right now, and we're working with him on that, but that very well could have been him. And I'm sitting here thinking, this poor child, and she even says, I am a child.
Yeah.
And like, the children, I feel like, are smarter than the adults right now and behaving. So my heart broke, but how do we break this cycle with the women being involved and with counselors, or a setting where the child doesn't feel like she's a minority and she feels safe to talk and explain the situation? Because like Tina said, the moment that female officer came, she did, she calmed down. And
Yes.
it's all about communication, and they handled it all wrong with this child. She's a child.
The fact that the child could say, hello, everyone, this is what I need. So they were at an advantage with this child in particular, who had the wherewithal, the maturity, and conviction to say, hey, look, I need something else for this to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Those situations, and we'll hear the officer say it's a matter of moments and things can change in an instant. And there are so many variables. But in this case, and we're getting just a snippet, understood, we're clearly seeing a child communicate in a situation that seems like the child is more proactive in the de-escalation than
Right.
those that were actively trained. So we've got the end of this cycle is whatever that is that has our service people operating off script in a way that abandons their call, oath, purpose, role, then I think that's where we have to start. I'm reading a book about the Civil War and
Mhm.
about the myth of the whole idea, and that there's a full concept and idea that the Civil War was about two equally fighting entities, North and South, Confederate Union. But in actuality, there were a group of people in the South who did not agree with how things were established, who were a part of the United States of America at the time, and said, we don't like this. We're not going to operate in the role or in the capacity that we created, and utilizing it. Now, mind you, civil rights is about going against what may be wrong or established, but it is about what is wrong and established. So here we had a group of people who said, I'm going to attack and kill my fellow man. No use of judgment, wise judgment, as well as everything that you've laid out before to create a civil nation gets tossed because you disagree with the outcome. So we're talking about, and I relate this because we say, well, how do we get rid of it? I'm talking 14th century. So how will we unearth and upend something that has kind of been the way and way of operating for that long? It has to get down to, what are you saying when you make an oath and a commitment and a promise to do? And do we understand that before we allow you to hold the level of authority and position that you have?
And
Right.
I feel like in order to do that, consequences need to be harder. They need to be more severe. So the moment you break that vow that you make to your fellow men and partners, your consequences are going to be this if you break it.
Yeah. So
And
we
not a
would
slap
call it,
on the wrist.
exactly. We'd be calling folks like, Robert E. Lee would be convicted of treason, among others.
Right.
Right.
I mean, if we're calling it for what it is.
Calling it for what it
Yeah.
is. And this is your behavior. If you don't like it, don't do it.
That's right.
That's the
Yeah.
point that we get to.
Yeah.
Now, with it being, another thing is that how widely this belief and the way of operating is going to be a challenge. How does a seemingly minority, small minority, counteract what seems to be a prevailing way of thought? We've got Black and brown children traumatized from seeing, knowing, experiencing violence against people who look like them. We're talking generational trauma from their parents and their parents before them who have experienced it. And now they're reacting out of trauma and out of fear of even becoming the next victim.
Right. Right.
Oh,
And
so what do
yeah,
you tell your son, Teena? Because now he's in those ages and spaces where you don't get to just protect him.
I know. I know. And here it is, also I kind of want to just comment on what you were saying about the fact that, I'm thinking about the little girl. She was coming from two situations, right? So that trauma that you were just speaking of, fear that you were just speaking of, one on one hand, but on the other hand, she was terribly upset about something that she'd seen that allegedly happened within her home. She was upset about her dad, and that's why she kept hollering out, I want my dad, I want my dad. She was afraid that her dad was hurt. So she had two situations going on. She was upset and traumatized of what she believes she saw as far as her father is concerned, and how is he doing, and is he okay? And then at the same time, I've got these officers who I know, you know, they're officers sometimes that hurt kids like me. And so she's freaking out. She's freaking out. And so it was so sad to see her in that position. What I say to my son is, first off, he has to remain calm. He has to keep his head. He has to remember that, he may be judged without even saying one word. And then he also might be judged after he says a word. You know what I mean? So it's a real catch-22, but I always make sure that I tell him first and foremost to remain calm in the situation, answer the questions, do what it is that you are being told, and then try to, of course, advocate for yourself all at the it's very scary for them, though, because there have been people who have done just exactly what I've instructed my son to do, and their outcome has been different.
And you know what? Here's what seems to be, and I'm listening to you, and I agree. But now I'm kind of bothered because you've got people who have certified training, hours
Yeah.
of it, and in a situation where all the preparation, like here's what you said, you prepped your son with, here honey, do this, this, and this. We tell the service people to do this, this, and this, and this. And so in that situation, there's no brain that says a child, but you know what? You don't see our children as children. Our children are a threat and not children. And what goes back to this book that's just blowing my mind. By the way, it's called Robert E. Lee and Me.
Yeah,
Written by Ty Sigily.
Okay.
And if you think about it, there's policy even back then where slave owners who might have children with their slave women were okay with enslaving their children and grandchildren. Like, this is your blood, but they're not people. We're still not
Looked at.
people. We're bodies, maybe, but it just comes back to how on God's green earth can you make the claim when it comes to a child? You cannot mistake a child. And so if you can lose your cool in an intense situation, imagine a 7'9" grown-up person. Let me get stressed enough, I might not even know how to speak well enough.
Right.
So, yeah. So
Right.
kind of really getting to me. Now, do we need more certifiable, formalized training for our children and our families? And if we do, then we must identify that this is a legitimate threat. And we have to do something legitimately strategic to protect ourselves and our families.
We need to start knocking their egos down by disciplining the actions of these community supporters, so to speak. We need to start dropping their ego by hammering them with consequences. No slap on the wrist. They need, because if it was, let's just say if that was an African-American cop, what would happen to him if he did that to a white child? I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there.
Oh,
right.
Oh, yeah.
Why? A child is a child, period. A human being is a human being. And if we don't start cracking the consequences on these officers or other people who are behaving this way, then there's nothing to change, because they're going to know, oh, I'll get a slap on the wrist or I'll get this. No, you need to get exactly what would happen to anybody else who does not look like you or does not fit your realm of what you need. Because that's the first way we're going to get their attention is, oh, you want to do this? Okay, well, but again, how do we do that?
So here's where it begins. We go back to how this all started. The only power we have to hold anyone accountable is a very sound system. We must be involved. Representation matters, and our voices and vote count. I can't say, you're going to have to be suspended for your actions. And I am not a part of the mechanism that even established those rules, that conduct, that code that would hold them accountable. So we are as culpable, not as culpable, because we're not mowing down children, but if we're not careful, we can be complacent.
Right.
And understand that it's not a problem over there. It's a collective problem. And we must have something to say. And we must be involved to have something to say.
And the reality is, unfortunately, and I'm going to say this, we as a culture or race do not have those conversations with our children like Teena had to have with her son. You have to do this, you have to do that.
You don't even have to do it at all. Like, not even,
and that is ridiculous. It infuriates me that she has to have this conversation with her loved one, her child, to protect him because of this. And I'm gonna have to have that type of conversation with my son, not my daughter. It infuriates me that we even have to have these conversations and nobody else does. And then when people say, well, I don't understand white privilege, I don't understand this, you won't understand it.
You won't.
Because you've never experienced it.
You don't have to.
But when it comes back to this collective.
Right.
So here's what I like in that too. And we'll take a break and come on back. But I liken it to whatever we claim not to be aware of. Well, I don't know nothing about politics, or I don't know nothing about law, or I don't know nothing about. Well, if you don't, if
Hello
you ain't
today.
know anybody operating in a place of ignorance and a place of
Mhm.
collective responsibility is letting not only the collective down, but themselves.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
It makes no sense for me not to know about politics anymore. And now I am no, yeah, I was registered and I voted, but being active, knowing those judges, knowing our
Mhm.
districts, we
Mhm.
have a duty. And duty kind of implies obligation. Tina,
Mhm.
you'll probably be able to speak to that. But what's the phrase or component?
Responsibility,
Yeah.
social responsibility.
Yes, yes, Tina, and exactly, and also just being a human being,
Mhm.
just being a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of looking at this too with responsibility. We get in a car in order to get a license, you go through the same course book as everybody else who gets a license.
Mhm.
If we're a part of this. Now then
Mhm.
I wonder, well, what about people who don't want to live that way in this group? And could they just go off on by themselves? Well, that's kind of what this whole um, War of the Rebellion, which is a more apropos name for it, actually was. It's a rebellion against this. And I feel like people could have a choice, but if their choice is to be here and with,
Mhm.
then be involved in the change that can work for the good of us all.
Mhm.
Yes.
If that's even possible. Can we really even work for the good of all? Somebody's not going to be served, I would imagine. But if our voices are in there, we certainly can make a more fair and informed choice, is what I'm thinking. You?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that one was
I do. I
kind
agree.
of hit close to the heart for me. And let
Mhm.
me just add, that's even more reason to go see American Skin or to get American Skin and watch it. All right, so when we
I
come
will
back,
do
let's
that.
talk about Black History Month. Black History Month, the 28 good days we get it. We'll talk about that when we come back. Stick around.
I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell here with Amy Rivera and Miss Teena Love. And we're talking about Black History Month. It's upon us. And despite the pandemic restrictions, there are plenty of ways to celebrate. And I encourage you to do so. But first, let's talk about making this more than just a month-long celebration. I'm for making the month effective, but yes, on and on and on. Tina, Amy, what do you think? How can we incorporate Black History Month into a regular curriculum, not just one that's once a month, once a year?
Well, I'm looking at the parents who are all across the country stomping their feet about the fact that they want their kids in school. Because of the pandemic, they want their kids back in school, and they are talking to superintendents and they are demanding that this happen. I think that if, as parents, if we do something similar to that, about the fact that we need students to learn about Black history, not just during the month of February, where we all talk about, oh, good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and everybody in February. We need to be talking about this all the time. Why is it that we just have 1 month that we discuss these things? I think our youth deserve, whether they are Black or white, they deserve to know the truth, and they deserve to know
Mhm.
more than just what we focus on in the month of February. That's my thought.
I yeah,
Yeah. What do you think, Amy?
sorry, I totally agree. If you ask, just an example, ask kind of people about Black History Month, they immediately think of slavery. They don't think of what really, before slavery, what was it? Exactly. You were royal. You come from royalty. There's things there. But people don't know that. So what do? We need to start educating them every month of the year, every day, and talk about it, not just February. But yes, there's a lot of history. They know Martin Luther King. They know these famous names, but they don't know the history of where you come from and what you come from, and what you bring to us as Americans in the United States. And I think, Tina, you're right. If we start stomping our feet like we are right now with schools, all our children will be united eventually in the future.
Well, they need to know about the contributions of African Americans.
Absolutely.
You know, there is each day something that we can talk about an African American and how they have contributed, to the world and the, our society. So that's why I say, it's not something that we should just do in February, but we can do this all year long.
Right. I think it's so important.
I'm gonna tell you what I think.
That's what you think.
As if you asked. But what I think is that an accurate, factual,
accurate
telling, teaching of history in our schools, along with any other historical perspective, maybe even if you do separate into African American, African histories, any other history. That sounds like a person couldn't think of another name, but I could. But if we have an accurate telling, there won't be a need for Black History Month.
That's right. That's right.
Because our history, one, will be entwined with one another, and all of those. But if we have that accurate telling, I do believe that we won't have as much objection to fair and equitable treatment of the people who are here as well. So once we can get rid of the cancer of deception, the cancer of lies, the cancer of misrepresentation, I'm certain it won't be just a Black History Month. We'll be celebrating something else for a month of our attained, collective achievement, right? Yeah. And my thing right now is seeking truth. I am so blown away by this book, y'all.
I know, I want to read it. I want to read it.
I want the audio book too, so if you're on the go. I think we're on the same page. Now, there was a deliberate effort by former President Donald Trump to eliminate any of that cultural competency education. And so we're back to, where will your voice stop something like that from happening, or create a way for something like that to happen? So, honor to all of you amazing sisters. Yeah. And the work you're doing with your children and your families and your community, I salute you. You are making history right now. So I'm celebrating y'all.
Yes. And yes. Yes.
Yes.
Well, and I guess that, people who feel like, oh, it's just my voice. Yeah. Oh, my voice won't be heard. No, we need everyone's voice. Everyone's voice.
Your voice today was right on the money, Amy. No. Like, you are royal. You come from greatness. You are the strength. She's right. I was like, yes.
Well, we're gonna, yeah.
And you know what? And I think that if our youth, I'm going to speak about African American youth, if we really understood that, then we would carry ourselves a little bit differently. We would walk a little bit differently. We would know, where we come from. And I think we would treat ourselves a little bit better too. But we need to understand that, and they're not hearing it. That's the problem. They're not hearing it.
Yeah, they're not hearing it. So people like myself, we need to voice it louder, and we need to instill that, because those are our children too. That's the way I feel. Like, that's my child too. Your children are my children. And at the end of the day, we're all children, and we need to support each other. So,
and you can keep my children this weekend, since yours too. And
come on over.
I have a lesson.
I'm so glad to see y'all again. Thank you for lifting me and us for the show again this week. You ladies take care, and all of you are watching. Keep talking, keep watching, keep the dialogue, and keep the facts coming, and keep it close to STL TV. Tune in each week, and for everything St. Louis, stay locked in on social media for STL TV. Take care.